My father insisted I hand over my bonus, snarling. I raised you, so your success belongs to me. When I refused, he stole my bank information and drained my account, laughing. Family means sharing everything. His smug expression shattered when the bank called and announced, "This has been reported as fraud, and we're pressing charges." I grew up in a small town outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Steel mills, greasy diners, and too many people knowing your business. My dad, Gerald, was the kind of man who could suck the warmth out of any room. Loud, overbearing, always right, even when he was dead wrong. My mother left when I was 10. Said she couldn't live with a man who made her feel like a failure just for breathing. She took my little brother, Jake, and vanished to Ohio. Left me behind with him. I tried to stay under the radar growing up. Did my homework, kept my room clean, learned how to cook just to avoid hearing him scream about useless children. I went to community college, then transferred to Pitt. Got a business degree. Worked part-time jobs, scraped by on scholarships. I didn't ask for a dime from him. He didn't come to my graduation. When I called to tell him I landed a full-time job with a logistics firm in Chicago, he grunted and hung up. That was his love language, indifference. Fast forward to last year. I had been working at the same company for over a decade. I wasn't flashy about it, but I moved up. Saved smart. Lived in a modest apartment in Lincoln Park. I drove a 2014 Honda. I didn't splurge, didn't post pictures of vacations or shopping hauls like people I knew from college. I just worked. And that year I got a bonus. A big one. Just under $30,000. It felt like validation. Like every late night, every time I swallowed my pride in front of a client, every time I let someone else take credit, it all built to this. I told my dad over the phone, during one of our rare, awkward monthly calls. I don't know why I said it. Maybe I wanted him to be proud. Maybe I wanted something resembling a human reaction. But all he said was, "Good. You can finally pay me back." I thought he was joking. So I laughed. He didn't. "Don't laugh," he said. "I raised you. That money's mine too. You wouldn't be where you are without me." I paused. "You didn't even help me get through college." He scoffed. "I put a roof over your head. You screamed at me for breathing too loud," I said. "You left me hungry more nights than I can count. That's called tough love. That's how men are made. No, that's how therapy bills are made." He hung up. A week later, I got a message from my bank. Unusual activity. I checked my account. Gone. All of it. Not just the bonus, my checking account, my savings, even the small emergency fund I kept separate. All drained within 48 hours. I froze. Called the bank. They walked me through the charges. Multiple transfers to a newly linked account. I didn't recognize the number. I told them it wasn't me. They froze everything. Started an investigation. 2 days later, I get a call from him. "How's it feel?" he said, voice calm, almost smug. "Family means sharing everything, doesn't it? You stole from me. You owed me," he said. "You just didn't know it yet." I felt sick. My own father had committed identity fraud. The bank was already on it. They took it seriously. They said it was textbook fraud, and they'd escalate it. I drove back to Pennsylvania. Sat on his porch like I used to as a kid, knees tucked to my chest. When he opened the door, I didn't say anything. He looked down at me, satisfied, like he'd won something. "You shouldn't have fought it," he said. "You'd have saved yourself trouble. You're going to jail," I said quietly. That's when it changed. His mouth twitched. "What?" I reported it. "The bank's filing charges. They know it was you. They won't do that. I'm your father. You committed a crime." "They don't care who you are. You think a bank's gonna send me to prison? They already called me. They're pressing charges." He stepped back, like I'd hit him. For once, he didn't have a comeback. I left without another word. I drove back to Chicago that night, hands shaking the entire way. The next morning, he started calling. First once, then 5 times. By noon, it was over 20. I didn't pick up. The voicemails were wild. At first, he was yelling. Then pleading. Then blaming me for destroying the family. He said I was brainwashed by city people. That I didn't understand what real loyalty looked like. I saved every message. I knew it wasn't just about the money for him. It was control. Always had been. When he couldn't control me anymore, he went for the next best thing, taking what I built. A week later, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail like I always do. But this time, they left a message. It was Jake. My little brother. The one Mom took when she left. I hadn't spoken to him in over 10 years. His voice was lower, calmer. Hey, I don't know if you'll even listen to this. But Dad's freaking out. He's been calling everyone. Even Mom. Said you're trying to get him arrested. I just wanted to hear your side. I called him back. We talked for over 2 hours. He told me everything. That Dad had been contacting him every year since he turned 18, trying to reconnect, but really just begging for money. That when Jake didn't give him any, Dad started guilt-tripping him about being ungrateful. I told him what happened with the bank. With my account. Jake was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "That sounds exactly like him." Apparently, Dad had done something similar to an old neighbor. Took out a payday loan in the guy's name back when we were kids. The guy never pressed charges, just moved away. But Jake remembered. That gave me an idea. I went back to the bank and asked if they'd accept testimony from others about my father's history. They said it could help their case. I reached out to that old neighbor through a mutual contact. Took some digging, but I found him. He was living in Erie now. When I explained everything, he agreed to make a statement. Said it was time someone held the old bastard accountable. Then things got weird. I started noticing cars parked across the street from my apartment. Same gray truck every other night. Always running, always with someone inside. When I walked my dog, the engine would shut off. When I turned the corner, it started again. Once, I waited behind a dumpster for 15 minutes until they drove off. Then came the envelope. No return address. Just my name, written in messy, angry handwriting. Inside were photos. Photos of me leaving work. Walking into my building. Eating lunch at the park. It felt like something out of a movie, but it was real. Too real. There was no note. Just a single line, scribbled on the back of one picture. Drop the charges or next time it won't be pictures. I reported it immediately. The police took it seriously, especially because of the bank fraud case. They told me to keep my head down. Suggested I stay with a friend for a while. I moved in with my coworker, Marla. She had a guest room and a pit bull with a protective streak. I felt safer there. 2 days after I moved in, the gray truck showed up outside Marla's place. She wasn't subtle. She walked straight up to it with her dog and a baseball bat. The guy inside peeled off so fast he nearly hit a mailbox. The police tracked the plate. It was registered to one of Dad's buddies, some guy named Carl who used to come over and drink with him when I was a kid. Real winner. Had a record for DUIs and assault. They brought him in for questioning. He cracked in under an hour. Said my dad had paid him $500 to scare me a little. That was it. The bank moved forward. The police opened a harassment case. Carl turned over texts, voice messages, even a handwritten note from Dad that said, "Make sure he knows we're watching." I couldn't believe it. My own father had sent someone to stalk me. To threaten me. All because I wouldn't let him steal from me without consequence. And then came the subpoena. I was officially listed as a key witness. The case was going to court. The day I got the papers, he called again. I was stupid and answered. His voice was cold. Not angry. Not desperate. Just flat. You know this won't end well, he said. I didn't respond. You think people care about you? You think the world's fair? You'll lose everything. You'll be alone. I already was, I said. Then I hung up. The next day, someone broke into my old apartment. The landlord called me. Said the place had been trashed. Nothing stolen. Just destroyed. Dresser smashed. Couch ripped open. My diploma on the floor cracked in half. Even my old childhood photo albums, shredded. The police found fingerprints. Guess whose? They arrested him that night. The news of his arrest spread faster than I expected. A few old neighbors messaged me on Facebook, people I hadn't talked to since high school. Some sent sympathy. Others just wanted gossip. But one message stood out. It was from my cousin Tasha. I hadn't seen her since we were teenagers. Her message was short. You don't know the half of it. Call me. I remembered Tasha being quiet, a little awkward, but always kind. She lived 2 towns over, closer to where Dad grew up. I called her the next evening. She didn't waste time. You remember Grandma's house? She asked. Yeah. Haven't been there since I was a kid. Well, it's gone. Sold off 3 years ago. But here's the thing, your dad sold it. Said he had power of attorney. Said he was the only surviving relative. He forged signatures. Even said you and I signed off on it. I didn't know what to say. Grandma's house had been in our family since the 1940s. It wasn't a mansion, but it was solid, with land and history. It should have gone to the family. He pocketed the money, she said. Over $100,000. Told everyone it was for medical bills. Did anyone report it? Uncle Vic tried. But by then, he was already dealing with cancer. He let it go. That shook me. He'd been pulling this stuff for years. Just behind the scenes. Quietly. Carefully. And now I realized something even darker. This wasn't just about money. He needed to win. Always. Tasha offered to testify. She still had copies of the forged paperwork. I added it to the file with my lawyer. Yeah, by now I had one. Her name was Ruth, sharp as nails, and absolutely relentless. She took everything Tasha sent and called it a gold mine of pattern behavior. And then she said something that made my stomach drop. This might qualify as a RICO case. Isn't that for mafia stuff? I asked. She nodded. It can apply to organized, repeated financial crimes. If we can show a pattern, and that others were used to assist or enable it, Carl, the forged house documents, even the fraud with your bonus, it could escalate. So that's where we were heading. But then the real twist came. Jake called again. His voice was strange. Nervous. Hey. I need to tell you something. And you're not going to like it. I sat down. You remember when Dad first started contacting me? After I turned 18? Yeah. He asked for my social security number. Said it was for insurance stuff, like something Grandma set up when we were kids. I was dumb. I gave it to him. I felt my stomach turn. Jake, I didn't think anything of it, he said. But a few months later, I started getting bills. Credit cards I never opened. Loans I never took. He paused. I never told you because I was embarrassed. I thought I could handle it. But now with all this happening, I think he used my identity too. Years ago. He sent me the paperwork he'd kept hidden in a box under his bed. There were 5 accounts. All opened between 2011 and 2014. Maxed out. Some had gone to collections. It was the same pattern. Same story. Different victim. Only this time, it was his own son, not just his older one. We added Jake's files to the case. Ruth said it changed everything. But not everyone saw it that way. A week later, someone egged my car. Not the usual, bored teenager, job. This was targeted. Raw eggs in the vents. Sugar in the gas tank. Windows cracked. Police said it was probably someone close to him. We couldn't prove it, but we both knew who was behind it. Then came the anonymous email. The subject line read, "Traitor." Inside was a single photo, me at age 12, standing next to my dad at a community barbecue, both of us smiling. It had a caption typed across the bottom in red. "He made you. You destroyed him." I reported it. The email was traced to a public library in Greensburg. No security footage. No fingerprints. Dead end. But it showed me something important. He still had people willing to do his dirty work. People who bought his lies. People who saw him as the victim. The court date was set for early fall. It was midsummer by now. The pressure was building. I was sleeping less. Eating sporadically. Trusting fewer people. Even at work, I felt off, paranoid, anxious, scanning crowds like someone might lunge at me. Then I got a letter. Certified mail. Postmarked from inside the Allegheny County Jail. It was from him. 4 pages, handwritten. It started with fake warmth. "Son, I raised you. I made sacrifices you'll never understand." Then it turned cold. "You've ruined everything. I had a plan. I would have given you some of it. You didn't have to make this ugly." He wrote about family loyalty, about how the world was cruel, and how he taught me to survive in it. He talked about his own father, how he used to beat him with a belt, and how what he gave me was gentle in comparison. Then, in the last paragraph, he said, "You'll regret this when you're older and alone. When you realize what real betrayal feels like. Blood is blood. And blood remembers." I didn't reply. But Ruth said, "That letter? It's evidence. And it's damning." We made copies. Gave it to the DA. Then we waited. The trial started on a gray, rainy Monday in early October. The courthouse was packed. Reporters came after hearing about the fraud, the break-ins, the RICO possibility. But it wasn't just reporters. There were people from my old town, people I hadn't seen in 20 years. Some stared. Some nodded. Some wouldn't look at me at all. He walked into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit, shackled at the ankles. He looked smaller. Thinner. But the smugness was still there, tucked in the corner of his mouth. Like he still thought this was all a game. That he could talk his way out like he always had. He didn't look at me. Not once. I took the stand. So did Jake. So did Tasha. So did Carl, even though it took a deal with the DA to get him to flip. He cried on the stand. My dad just glared. When the bank's fraud investigator testified, they showed graphs and paper trails and IP addresses. They showed emails from my dad's old account to himself with my bank details. They showed him logging into my accounts just hours before the money vanished. But the real hammer was the letter. Ruth submitted it into evidence, then read it aloud. Every single word. The courtroom was dead silent. When she got to the line, "Blood is blood. And blood remembers," someone behind me gasped. My dad leaned forward, eyes narrow. That was the first time he looked at me. 3 days of trial. On the 4th day, the verdict came in. Guilty. Identity theft. Fraud. Harassment. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Financial abuse of a dependent adult. Even the property forgery from Grandma's house came into play. The judge didn't hold back. 15 years in federal prison. No parole for at least 10. He didn't speak when they sentenced him. No apologies. No last words. Just stood there, face blank, like it hadn't sunk in. Like he still didn't believe it was real. After the sentencing, I walked out of the courtroom. Jake was waiting. He hugged me. We stood there for a long time. Outside, reporters swarmed, but I said nothing. No comments. No statements. 3 weeks later, I went back to the old town. Not to visit. To finish something. I went to the old cemetery where my grandma and grandpa were buried. Brought fresh flowers. sat beside their graves and told them what happened. About what he did. About how he used their memory to steal, to lie. I felt like they deserved to know the truth. On my way back to the car, I saw someone waiting by the fence. It was Mom. I hadn't seen her since I was 10. She looked older, tired, but her eyes, same warm eyes I remembered. She said Jake told her everything. She cried. We stood there in the fading light, and I didn't say much. I didn't have to. I drove back to Chicago the next day. The money? I got it back. The bank reimbursed the full amount after the conviction. But it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about cutting the chain. Breaking the cycle. People asked me if I felt guilty for putting my father in prison. Here's the truth, no. I felt free. But I did make mistakes. I ignored signs. I thought distance would keep me safe. I believed that not fighting back made me strong. I was wrong. Sometimes, walking away just gives them time to reload. Sometimes, the only way to end the storm is to walk into it, and burn down everything that's fueling it. Let it all turn to ash. Because from ash, you can build again. And this time, I'm building on solid ground. No lies. No fear. No more pretending blood is thicker than truth. He made his choices. And so did I.